Good thing I don't need the bulletin anymore. I threw it on the floor. So this is one of my very favorite Bible stories. It's found in 1 Samuel chapter 16. It's the story of David and Goliath. It's the epic underdog defeats the big bad guy story. It's where all of the underdog stories have their beginning, in my opinion. When I was a little guy, I was in 5th grade. I was in Owen Anson's 5th grade boys Sunday school class. We were learning the story of David and Goliath, and Owen looked at me and he said, "Well, Davy, you were probably named for David." I had bad news for him. I didn't know I had bad news for him then because I wasn't smart enough to figure it out. And I said, "I probably was." And Owen proceeded to take out 9 5th grade boys to the yard in the back. We had a football-sized field in the back. And he gave each one of us a slingshot. What was he thinking? And we were all so excited. Now he says, "Now don't tell your parents who gave you these." We all told on him. In fact, we found out later on that he had talked to all of our parents, and our parents had actually given permission. What were they thinking? He said, "Now you all go over and find a little rock." So we all went and found 3, because, if one is good, 3 is better. So he had set up a target, and he says, "I'll give a prize to the first one of you who from this line can hit that target with whatever rock you pull." Now, I found out I was actually a little bit smart when I was in 5th grade. I let everybody else go first. And all of their rocks fell short. And I'm watching, and I go, I have a better idea. So I went back over to the parking lot, and I got a little bit bigger and a little bit rounder rock. I lined it all up, my best shot, and let it fly. And I missed. You all thought I was going to hit the target, but my rock flew about 20 yards past. So I won the prize. I don't know why I won the prize. There were people who got it closer than I did. I think he was just impressed that I was smart enough to send it farther. This story is amazing. So we know about David. David has been called into the service of the king to be a harp player when he was tormented by evil spirits. And so David was used to being in the presence of the king. And when they went to war against the Philistines, David went home because Saul was out with the army and he didn't travel with the army. He had a really important job at home. When the brothers went to war, he had to go back to tending the sheep. And so part of his job was every once in a while, he had to take food to his family, who are all soldiers, because their army was not like our army. The families had to feed their children who were soldiers, not the king. So, on one day, Jesse sends David to feed his brothers. Now remember, there's 7 of them, so enough food for 7 brothers is a lot of food. It wasn't an easy trip. And he gets there only at just the right time. Hey! You Israelites! Israelites over there, came the roar. Send out your best. Send out your champion. Let's get this war thing over. Send out your champion, we'll fight. And the winner takes all. That was what David walked into. And here was the answer. That was King Saul. Hunkered down, hiding in his tent, scared to death of that great big old giant. And that's what David saw. And David saw that. And he was appalled. Now, David had an advantage. He had already met Samuel. He had already been told, you've got a good future. Just wait it out. But he didn't. He was appalled that the people of God couldn't stand up to that one guy yelling across the valley at them. And so he did the only thing. He went to his brothers, he gave them their food, and he says, why aren't you guys fighting that guy?
We don't want to die.
Bingo. I don't want to fight him. He'll cut my head off. Have you seen his sword? Have you seen his spear? His spearhead alone weighed 30 pounds. Think about that for a minute. Just go pick up 30 pounds and try to throw it. Anybody. And imagine throwing it like a javelin or a spear. That's not what the Israelite soldiers were thinking about. They were thinking about being hit by that spear. And they were afraid. They were so afraid, Scripture says they slunk into their tents and didn't come out. That's the people of God. And David's there, he's watching. He sees his brothers go hiding. He sees his king who is the tallest man, the biggest man in all of Israel. He's about 6'9", and he's quivering in his boots. And so he does the only thing that he knows to do. He goes to his king. And you have to remember, he had access to the king. He was welcome in the king's place. I'm sure the king was actually glad to see him. I am sure the first words out of the king's mouth were somewhere along the lines, oh, David, it's so good to see you. I need you to play your harp because I'm really troubled right now. But David didn't have his harp. He wasn't there to calm the king's nerves. And he came in and he said, oh, my king, may I volunteer to go out and fight the giant? Now, I think the first thing that happened is Saul looked at him and said, You're not even as tall as I am. You're not as tall as any of your brothers. You're not as tall as my armor bearer. What are you going to do against that giant? And David says, for as long as I can remember, my Lord, I have been out in the field guarding my father's sheep. And in that field I have wrestled and defeated bears and killed the lions. So why would I be afraid of him? And you know what? Saul didn't have an answer for that. Saul didn't have anything to say to David because David just made sense. Especially when he finished with the saying, when I go out there, I won't be alone. My God will go with me. You see, Saul had forgotten that part about being king of Israel. Saul had lost his kingship because he forgot who the king of Israel really was. The Lord our God. And all at once, Saul remembered. You know that proverbial light bulb that goes on? Saul remembered. Yes, we'll send out a child of God. He says, okay, David, you're on, but we're going to fix you up so you're right. And you heard what Warren said. You're going to put on my armor. Now, Saul is 6'6" tall, approximately. David is 5'2" on a good day. I don't really know how tall he is, but he isn't nearly the size. And so he let Saul put him on. And I think there should have been a movie camera of that, because I think just putting on the armor would have been hilarious. I think it would have knocked him over. He says, my Lord, I thank you for the armor, but I think I'm a sitting duck because I cannot move. And when he throws that spear at me, I want to be able to move out of the way. I don't want to be the target. So he takes it all off. He says, King, let me just do it my way. And then he prays and he goes out and he gets 5 smooth stones. I always wondered why he got 5. Because we've all read the story. It took 1. But he got 5. Balance. Maybe. And he gets that little sling going and he starts going out into that field, and the Goliath comes out and says, hey, are you going to send anybody? Wait. What's this ant coming across the field? What's this itty bitty spider coming across the field looking like he's going to take me on? How dare you dishonor me with this puny, that was the word he used, puny little runt who's not even a soldier. And David, he's just slinging that sling around. He says, hey, Mr. Goliath, sir, you might come at me with that big old spear. You might have that big old sword. And you might have all those people, but you don't have the one thing I have. What do you got that I ain't got? I think it was more colorful than that, just so you know. And David says, I've got the Lord our God. And it says he wound up and he let that rock go and it hit him straight in the forehead and knocked him to the ground dead. And the rout was on. Now, I've told you this story because we all have giants in our lives. They might not be 9 feet 6 inches tall. And if you want to know how tall that is, go in after church and see the children's ministry area where they have been putting tape on the wall for every child and for every adult. And last week they put King Saul in there at 6'6", and it's the tallest one. And today they were going to add Goliath, which is more high than my hand. Some giants are like that. Some giants you can see for miles and hear for miles, and you know they're the bad guy. And those giants, they fall hard too. But not every giant in our lives is seeable as Goliath. And here's my word for you about that. Every single one of us say, that includes me. That includes me. That includes me. Gosh, I love it when you say it like you might mean it. Because you see, you and I have giants in our lives. Now, those giants might be an addiction to something. Our giants might be drug or alcohol related. Our giants might be people related. Our giants might be our lack of patience. Our giants might be our anxiety, our despair, our fear, our anger. Some are seeable for miles, others lay underneath the surface of our lives, just waiting for the cell phone call to come, just waiting for bad news to arrive, just waiting to throw us not just from despair into despair, but into utter despair. Yesterday, I responded to one of those calls. Honestly, I was exhausted. The phone rang. I knew who it was. I was tempted not to answer it, but I was really glad I did. I even tried to get out of it after I answered it, because how many of you have ever done that? You've answered it. I came up with a better idea. I said, hey, look, you need a chaplain, and it's clear out by Dexter Lake. I'm in Junction City. I'm at least 45 minutes away. I hadn't looked at a map or anything, but I know where Dexter Lake is, and I'm going, I don't have a red and blue light in my car. They tell me I can't speed to respond, which I think is a problem. But I'm taking that up with the sheriff after yesterday, let me tell you. So I said, call the other chaplain. He lives on that side of town. And then he said, oh, yes, I'll call him. And I didn't have the heart to say he wasn't going to get an answer, because as soon as I hung up, I knew where Dave was, and he wasn't going to be available. So then I went and put my shirt on, because I knew I was going to get a message back saying, couldn't get a hold of Dave, so I got in my car. It was a terrible thing. Young man out enjoying the water with his family or friends gets caught, his boat turns over, and he drowns. I knew that he had passed away before I got there, they told me. I knew what that was going to do to that family. And when I got there, I found out it was worse than I thought, because it was the second member of this family or group of friends to pass away this way. Our giant sometimes could be unwillingness. You see, there are some things we need to do with our giants. And the first thing we need to do with our giants is be prepared to attack them. And the way you get prepared to attack the giants in your life is with great faith. That's what David exhibited. David went to that battle with Goliath with greater faith than the entire Israeli army. We have to go into battle against our giants knowing that God wants us to win. We have to go into those battles with our faith stronger than our fear. And we have to go into those battles with great focus. That's when David was walking out there, he never took his eyes off of Goliath while he was swinging that sling. He was swinging it, and he watched him come down into the valley to annihilate him. He knew he only was going to get one shot. He knew that there was only one chance. And if he missed, he was going to be squashed. So he's got his eyes on that target. But I can tell you something else. Had he missed, he would not have given up. Because you cannot give up against the fight, against the giants. And I learned something while I was really doing research into this sermon. This giant, Goliath, is not the only giant that David faced in his life. In chapter 21, he runs into 3 more giants. He runs into Goliath's brother. He runs into another giant by name, and I can't remember what it is. But check out chapter 21. 3 more giants that David goes up against. And here's what happened. David went to battle. He kept his eyes on the giant. He kept his focus firmly on the opposition while he called on the name of his God to defeat it. And as David got older, even more came into play. As David got older, he surrounded himself more and more with what became known as the men of valor. They were David's closest soldiers, his biggest fans, his biggest group. Yeah, his support group. And that support group stood beside him. They stood in front of him. They stood behind him. And folks, when we are fighting our battles, we need people to stand beside us. We need people to stand in front of us. We need people to stand behind us. And Jesus makes all of that happen. And one of the things that I keep hearing about this church, from every new member we've added this year, from every member we've added since I've been here, this church stands with us. This church stands beside us in our grief. This church stands for us in our problems. Folks, that's what David's men of valor did. And that's what we're called to do, and that's who we're called to be, and that's who we are called to rely on around us. Because my giant isn't the same as anybody else's giant, perhaps. But we all have a giant. And we all need someone to hold our hand, to stand behind us, to stand beside us, to stand in front of us, sometimes to protect us, sometimes to push us into the battle, sometimes to walk into the battle with us. You see, when we're facing our giants, the single biggest thing that David knew was that he did not go into that battle alone. He went with the power and the authority and the support and the strength of his God. And as he became king, that changed even with his men around him. They became his protectors. They became his pushers. They became his go-beside soldiers. And what that means for us today, we never have to go into a battle by ourselves. In fact, we should never go into a battle by ourselves. We should never go to a fight without our men of valor, women of valor. Don't see me after church about that. Figure out who your people are. Make agreements with them to stand with them and beside them, in front of them, behind them. Pray with them, pray for them, pray that God protects all of you. But that's not the last thing David does. David does all of those things. He defeats the giant. When given the opportunity to have praise heaped on him, the story says that as they returned to Jerusalem, The crowds cried out, Saul has killed his thousands and David has killed his 10,000s. Infuriating King Saul, of course. And teaching David that the end of the battle isn't when the enemy is dead, but when you've given praise for the victory. See, we can do all of the things that I said in the first part of the sermon, but if we get to the end and we don't give God praise, it has become about us. And it has to be about God. Jesus came as sacrifice for us so we could be his people. And folks at First Christian Church, here's your message today. If all of what I've said hasn't been enough, you're not off the hook today. You see, it's nice to sit here in this nice, getting cooler building and go, yeah, that was really good. But I don't know about you. I don't sleep here. In fact is, I don't do most of my life here. And I think I'm here probably more than any of you. Our world's out there. Our world is where we shop and eat and drink. It's where we live. And every one of us has neighbors, some closer than others, of course, but we all have neighbors. And that's where the battle is. For the real battle is for the battle of people's souls. Not just ours, but the world's. And the good news, we all have that power. It's called the power of God's love. Amen.